That's because we have a lot of jealousy in this country. But look at me, cameraman, zoom it.
The Iron Sheik Nikolai Volkov, now managed by the Doctor of Style.
That's it, Daddy.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame, Tampa Bay Buccaneer fame, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Back at you today for episode 106. And if you know anything about the special guest we have on the show today, you know exactly why that song is playing to kick things off. But before we get into that, let me introduce you. If you're new around here, I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Evan Wanish. Evan, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. Really excited for the guest we have on today.
I am too, man. I am too. This is a guy who is one of the OGs of Buccaneers podcasting. And Evan, I know you're pumped about this, so I'll let you introduce our guest.
Yeah, sure. So I listened to a lot of Bucs podcasts over the years, and one of my favorites was the BucsBrief Podcast. And, of course, the host of the BucsBrief Podcast is the man who is with us tonight, is Mr. Chris Fisher. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. As my good friend, the Iron Sheik, would say, pleasure to speak to the intelligent Buccaneer fans. You are no jabroni. You are the real. Although you're in a Flyers, I don't know if I can talk to you in a Flyers hoodie, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I do know that
Flyers.
You're a Devils fan. I do know that.
My team will say the season's probably done, but they stink, so it's okay.
I'm
from Philly, too. I'm from Philly. So
I saw a story come out today that says the NHL is looking for a July start to the regular season. So, we have to wait and see how all of this BS plays out, but fingers crossed, right?
Who knows? I don't know, man. Thanks for the kind word, guys. I appreciate it. Your podcast is one that I check out. I think it's got a good formula. You guys think with logic. You talk it out. You may not agree with what each other says, but you don't speak with emotion. You speak with passion, and you do your homework, and I greatly appreciate that. That's the kind of content that I look for.
Hey, thank you so much, man. It's all about just kind of, paving your way, doing something that sets you apart from everybody else, because we know that there is a plethora of Bucs podcasts. If we are spoiled in anything, it's Bucs media to listen to, whether it's from a big established source like the Tampa Bay Times or even the Buccaneers themselves putting out content. You've got all the fan content as well, and we're just glad to be a part of it and have people like you support us. So thank you for coming on to the show. We have got a lot of good stuff to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. The Brady press conference. Finger quotes, right? It was a phone conference call that took place. Jason Light, Bruce Arians, and Tom Brady were on the line with an unnamed guy kind of guiding the call. And then you had media people calling in and asking their questions. You got a lot of good responses out of Brady. You got a lot of stereotypical responses out of Tom Brady. We'll kind of talk about that here in a second. But, was it just really awkward to anybody else? It was cool at first, but after a few minutes, it was just kind of weird. All the long 6-7 second silences between reporters asking their questions, and just, I don't know, it felt really weird to watch.
I enjoyed the elevator music.
Yeah.
Hey Tom, it's Chris from the BucsBrief. I can't even say it anymore. Podcast. Welcome to Tampa. Silence. And then he'd go to talk, and then, here's my question. So it was a little awkward, but it's a press conference, and I think they did what they could, audio standpoint. Mine crashed on the Bucs website. I for some reason, none of their live feeds worked for me. I went directly to YouTube and pulled it up there. Very, very, very PC for a PC. Nothing too exciting, but got some of the local media got their questions in, some of the national media. So good to hear from BA, and good to hear from Jason Light, and of course, now that it's official, it was good to hear from Tom Brady.
Yeah, did you guys notice that, like, Arians talked for about, like, 25 seconds or so? Like he didn't really talk much, and then I think that was, like, the most silence, because it was going, Jason Light talked, and then Arians, but what Arians was saying was basically already what Light was saying, and Arians talked for about 20 seconds, and then it was silence, and then Tom just started out of nowhere.
It seemed like a lot of rehashing of the same thing. Like, I could have sworn that Brady gave the same answer for 6 different questions. Like, you could have just copy and pasted his response and exactly what he brought up. I mean, I wanted to ask you guys about this because I think it's something we have to prepare for when you look at Tom Brady press conferences, is his art of question dodging. There was one guy who snuck in. I don't remember where he was reporting from. I want to say it was Boston or L.A., but it wasn't a Tampa reporter. And he had asked Brady a 2-part question. He was like, first off, have you talked to Chris Godwin about who's going to wear number 12? And the second question, I don't even remember, to be quite honest with you. And I was really looking forward to Brady answering the question about the number, and he didn't even address it. I mean, he very well may have forgotten it, but I feel like it's also a thing where he's been in New England long enough. That's kind of the way up there between the head coach and the quarterback who has to give all the cliche answers. I feel like this is a guy who knows how to dodge questions, and we got to get used to that.
You got to get used to his beaming smile as well when we actually get to see him. Like, he's got Josh McCown, in the history of Bucs quarterbacks, best hair, right? Josh McCown, by far, Josh McCown, best hair. Tom Brady, best smile, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so. I went back and watched a few of Brady's press conferences with New England last year, and he just walks up, just starts smiling at everybody. He always asks them how they're doing. Like, you even heard it on the call. Like, he was asking certain people how they were doing. I just think he's just he's a good people guy, you know? And I feel like it was a little bit awkward on the phone, but obviously with the circumstances, not much you could have done. And I just think that if it was an actual press conference, like with the table and the reporters standing there at Advent Health Training Center now, I still can't get used to that. But I feel like it would have been much less awkward and like much more. I know a lot of people were bummed because like they wanted to see, like they wanted to actually watch something and not really hear it, because you've heard everything. Like, that's basically another form of radio, but it still was pretty good to hear from him. Bruce Arians today actually said that he thinks that Brady and Godwin have already worked out the number 12 situation. So not sure, he didn't say what it worked out to be, but
he's wearing 12. When I say he, pronouns pal, I'm saying Tom Brady. He's going to wear 12. Come on now.
Capital H.
You got a whole brand. When you have a whole brand of around TB12, I think it's hard to not switch from 12. You know, even though it does seem like Godwin really doesn't want to switch, but
yeah, it is what it is at the end of the day. Now, Tom Brady to Tampa is a fairly recent thing. Everybody's been talking about it. I know opinions have been thrown out everywhere, but Chris, really quick, we just wanted to get kind of your little recap on how you feel about Brady to Tampa. Are you excited about it? Are you a little hesitant about what the future holds in Tampa Bay? Do you think it's going to make an immediate change? Where are you on the Brady train?
I'm excited about it just because of the fact that I think if we go back and look at transactions, coaching decisions that this team has made, well, look, guys, I mean, we've been miserable for how many years? You know, that's one thing to think about. It provides a little bit of hope. I know fans typically go into each season and have some hope. You know, the BA, I think, was the biggest thing going into last year, but look how the season started. I mean, they were very close to potentially blowing the whole thing up. If we go back and look at some of these games, man, they losing the 4 in a row, and then if that Arizona game didn't go and our defense didn't pick up some turnovers there, you got a potential of potentially 6 losses in a row, and what do they do at that point? So I always say temper your expectations, but it's just exciting, man. It's like a Gruden acquisition. I wasn't that excited about the Keyshawn Johnson trade, but if you just look at overall, how in the hell did this happen for Tampa Bay, right? And that's how we look at it. Like we are like.
It's because the world's coming to an end. That's exactly how it happens.
I guess
for Tampa Bay.
I guess so. People are calling the Corona hotline trying to talk to John Gruden or Tony Romo, and Tom Brady makes the call to come down to Tampa Bay. So I think it's exciting just because it's Tom Brady, and turnovers and just bad. bad positions, bad scenarios happen for the Bucks last year, and put the team in some bad situations where we saw, each game was a freaking roller coaster, guys. I mean, my God, mental, just the mental and emotional toll those games would take on fans, just the up and down, up and down, up and down, I think was exhausting. You guys have to talk about it every week. I don't. I'm like, oh my God, thank God I don't have to go on a microphone and talk about what just happened on Sunday. But I think it's exciting, guys. How can you not be excited? I think there's maybe just the subset of folks who were not so much Buccaneer fans. They were Jameis Winston fans, and they're going to be very negative about it. And hopefully, when they win some games, we can turn them around.
And it's kind of funny that you brought that subsect of fans up, because I kind of wanted to dive into that. Didn't want to spend too much time on it because people can jump on any social media and see it for themselves. We don't have to tell them exactly what's going on. But the departure of Jameis Winston and the arrival of Tom Brady, I don't know which one more so, but I mean, that division of Jameis Winston fans and Buccaneer fans is huge these past few days. I mean, I woke up on Twitter this morning and people are just turning on Bruce Arians, saying that, I don't like Bruce anymore because of the way that he treated Brady, which is amazing, because if you watched any of his press conferences the first 10 weeks of the season, you would have seen, I'm sorry, not treated Brady, you know what I meant, treated Jameis.
Treated Winston.
Yes.
Sure.
But if you would have looked at his press conferences the first 12 weeks of the season, I mean, the guy put Jameis on a pedestal more than several times. So it's just, I don't know, man. What is your take on everything going on right now? The Twitter world imploding.
Evan, how about you, man? Because I got a lot to say about this.
Well, I'm going to make it short and sweet. So, basically, what Rhett said, it's a lot of Jameis Winston fans, it's a lot of Buccaneers fans, and I think the Jameis Winston fans, they still are Bucs fans, but the issue is they become so attached to this one player, I guess because, he's a number one pick. I bet you a lot of people that are arguing with you about Jameis Winston also have a Florida State logo in their avatar. That's another big thing. And I just feel like, like I said, he's a local kid from Florida State. He won a national championship. The number one overall pick, the so-called, savior, threw for a bunch of yards, broke a bunch of records. And a lot of people didn't want to see him go, which is fine, to have your opinion. But this is starting to get a little extreme. I think you're starting to have people really attack certain things that make no sense. And they're really bringing up, well, Winston didn't have a run game and a defense, and now they're trying to get a run game for Brady and Winston, was screwed. Like it's some kind of conspiracy against Jameis Winston, which isn't the case. They just weren't very good at assembling a run game and a defense during Winston's time, which sucks. But I do think, just like Chris said, once they start winning games, if they start winning games, I think a lot of those fans will be just fine. So, Chris, floor is yours, my friend.
I got you, man. You tossed another thing at me now that I want to go down the route of. But you mentioned Josh McCown didn't have an offensive line. Did they help him out?
Yeah.
But then they drafted
Josh
Jameis.
McCown had a worse offensive line.
I mean, they tried for Jameis, which is another topic. But first with BA. I am not the hugest BA fan in the world. I was pretty vocal about that in the beginning. I thought they potentially might have maybe gone in a different direction, but I think Jason Light had to save his job. That's my theory on that, and you can quote me. I think he said some things in press conferences at the beginning of last season that I just was shaking my head, because if you're asking about accountability for folks and then you're only holding certain players accountable and praising others, but if you look at the film, like, this guy's not playing well, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're seeing. Blaming the schedule and the dumb decision to back your kicker up 5 yards and just say, look, we screwed up as a staff. Not, we meant to back him up 5 yards, and then the next day it's like, no, we expect him to make it. I mean, come on, man. You're talking out of both sides.
Let's not forget the double timeout in Carolina.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's two games in a row that the staff potentially cost this team wins. They did it in New York, against New York, and they almost did it against Carolina when everyone's most hated player, Vernon Hargreaves, made a huge tackle to save that game. They're 0-3, guys, at that point. And
they would have, if they lost that Carolina game, that bad stretch that they had afterwards, they would have started the season 1-6.
Yeah, the one win would have been the Rams. So, and that was the emotional interception return for a touchdown that was going to kick. It was going to spark the rest of the season. Bullshit. Anyway,
I bought into it. maybe because I was a little drunk watching the game, but I legitimately thought that the Rams game I thought it was a turning point. I really did. I mean, I was at a watch party with our buddy James. We were at a Buffalo Wild Wings. There were some Twitter peeps there. Like, everybody was having a great time. Me and Tommy were yelling at the top of our lungs, "We're going to drop 50 on these sons of bitches." It was an awesome time. And like I said, it could have been the alcohol talking, but I thought it was a turning point. I bought in at that point.
I tell you what, when I hit the sauce, I go off to Twitter and I say that Miles Sanders is going to lead the league in all-purpose yards next year, and I'm betting Scott Reynolds on that and how many other running backs are in the league. So I get you, man. Peter Report did the same thing after that win, with going to Twitter and tweeting emotionally, and I addressed that with them about that and how I don't know about this, guys. So anyway, that's the BA. So if we look at the Jameis Winston situation and the fans, it is a fact that when Jameis Winston was drafted, a lot of Florida State fans started rooting for either Jameis or the team, and that can be argued, I guess. It is known that websites who cover the Buccaneers had more Twitter followers, more hits to their website. It was good for business, okay? And I can tell you that as a fact because I've talked to people who saw the benefit of a Florida State quarterback who was very popular for Florida State fans, unpopular for other fans, but that's good, right? If you guys, the whole thing with Howard Stern of why do people listen to Howard Stern if you don't like him? Well, we want to hear what he's going to say next. So people who don't like him want to hear him, and people who do like him want to hear him. It's the same thing that happened in Tampa with Jameis Winston. What I've said to people since day one on this is just asking the question, did they try to help Jameis? Not were they successful in helping Jameis, but if you look at the decisions that the organization made, where you fire Lovie Smith but retain Jameis's offensive coordinator as head coach, what was the reasoning of doing that? To keep that continuity, right? Offense was humming. We don't want to make a switch and then have to have Jameis learn a completely different offense. Did they re-sign Mike Evans? Yes. Did they draft running backs, Chris Godwin? Did they draft Ali Marpet and Donovan Smith? At the time that they were doing that, guys, this is where the defense was getting ignored, and they were trying to supplement that with free agency because they weren't drafting it. I remember when Lovie Smith was the head coach, now we're just going to draft defense. And they went out and drafted an entire offensive class.
Yeah, it was the 2014 class. Yeah, it was
correct.
Not one defensive pick.
So while they weren't successful, if we look at the overall team, wins and losses, nothing else. Have they been successful over X amount of years? No. Did they try? Yes, but what they tried to do was build their roster around their number one overall pick quarterback. Their coaching decisions, in my opinion, Dirk and BA, were made for the quarterback. When you make those decisions and coaches are fired and draft picks then don't work out, right? Because a staff is there, they draft a certain player. Well, now that's not going to work out. So some of the draft classes you got to kind of throw in the garbage. Some guys worked out, some didn't. But the direction that the team was going was trying to put pieces in place to support Jameis Winston. In the meantime, guys like Levante David, guys like Gerald McCoy, can we get some help too? I got to play next to fat-ass Chris Baker who doesn't give a crap? Come on. So in the midst of making all these acquisitions and drafting all these players and trying to create an organization around your quarterback, some of those other positions were lax. So yeah, the defense struggled for years. There are things that happen. Maybe the offensive line isn't performing up to the level of what people expect when you take a left tackle in the second round. But they're back, right? It's not like it's new guys going in there every year. They tried, they failed, and it's time to move on.
I mean, not only did they, draft Donovan Smith and and Ali Marpet, but they also, they gave Ryan Jensen a contract that at the time made him the highest paid center in the NFL.
That's my man crush. That is my man crush. Never since Joe Jurevicius. I'll tell everyone, look, I'm a fan of the team. I'm not a fan of a player, but I will go to bat for that man, Ryan Jensen. Him and Joe Jurevicius. Two favorite Bucs of all time.
I got a good story about Ryan Jensen. I'm sorry to cut you off, Evan, just really quick. I was at American Social on Harbor Island last year. This was right before the season had started. And I saw Ryan Jensen just kind of standing there, and I think he was waiting for valet to pull his truck up because I walked up to him, and I tried as quiet as possible. I was like, hey, dude, are you Ryan Jensen? Because, there were several other people around, and I'm not saying all of them would have known who Ryan Jensen was, but I was so pumped to meet him. We look so alike, it's not even funny. I should have taken a picture with him. But I saw his truck roll up. Have you ever seen that thing?
I haven't.
No? Oh my god, it's beautiful. If you are a lover of large vehicles, his, I think it's like a 2016 Ram. It's a sight to see. I even asked Bradley Pinion about it, and he loves that damn thing. So I just wanted to throw that in there because he was a really nice guy to talk to.
Well, I'll get Evan real quick though. The thing with him, and I think I mentioned this to Mark Cook on Twitter. I watched Josh McCown get destroyed, and it looked like his offensive line just turned around and like, oh, sorry, like there's nothing we can do. And they didn't even help him up. Yeah. When are we ever going to get a freaking enforcer on the offensive line? Ali Marpet's not. I'm sorry, for years not the enforcer. Maybe since Logan Mankins. When I knew and I went and did the film work on this guy, I was like, dude, this is exactly what this team needs. People complain about Jameis Winston getting hit late and the cheap shots that are taking him. Wait till the first time that it happens. I don't care if it draws a 15-yard penalty. You're going to make a freaking statement, and Ryan Jensen's going to come after your ass, and he's going to knock you on your ass. Now, he got targeted, in my opinion, a little bit for some stupid flags that were not on him, but he made a statement, and then his penalties got cleaned up last year. But it's nice to have an enforcer. Finally, my God, on the offensive line.
While we're on the topic of Ryan Jensen, Chris, while you're here, is he a top 3 center in the NFL?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
Good. I told you, Evan. I told you there's people out here who agree with me.
So I just don't. Well, for one, I should go back and watch his 2019 again. Okay. But I just look at, like, is he on the same level as a Jason Kelce? I think you could argue he's probably the best center in the NFL. I think a lot of people could argue that.
I agree.
And and Alex Mack in Atlanta. I think
he's better than
really
Mack.
good.
He's better than Mack.
I would like to think so. Because
didn't he retire?
I don't think so.
No, that was the center for Dallas.
No, yeah, it wasn't Mack. Travis Fredericks had just retired, a Cowboy center. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I got to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'll be open to it, Rhett. All right, I'll give you an answer. I'll go watch the film. Game Pass is free.
Game Pass is free.
I'll go back
baby.
and watch it. So I'll go back, watch, and come to you guys with an answer. But I mean, like I said, they paid him a lot of money, right? And honestly, Chris, that night when they signed him felt great for you because I knew, that you were big on him, and you were big on him since like immediately, like even before the season ended.
The happiest I've been since they signed Joe Jurevicius, because that was my boy too. I was a white wide receiver, and I wore the number 83 in high school, and I wanted white wide receiver. Give me number 83, Joe J, baby.
That's great. Yeah. So
you go, Joe.
I mean, and also, you gotta look at, they kept DeMar Dotson all around, right? So try to add protection there. DeMar was a solid right tackle for many years. Drafted Alex Kapp in the 3rd round. I know Chris is going to love this, the hashtag weapons for Winston movement, right?
Look, dude, come on.
Signed Deshaun Jackson, draft O.J. Howard,
Bro. I mean, and again, not that they were successful doing it, but you can't say they didn't attempt to do it. Yeah. And, the same people who are all weapons for Winston, are now saying, well, they should have addressed the line. Well, bro, you're sitting there hashtagging weapons for Winston, and now 3 years later, when it didn't work out, now you're telling me that they should have drafted the bodies when myself and Derek were beating that drum for how long? Like, guys, you can't go all on one side. You got to break this up a little bit. You can't just address your defensive line via free agency. It must be nice as new 93 coming into the team. You got JPP and you got Shaq Barrett and you've got Vea. Old 93. JPP had a pretty damn good season that year, right? What was it? 12 sacks. I don't typically just look at one stat, but it's nice coming in and having them finally start addressing. I think BA's had a bigger influence on the draft since he's been here. I think he's calling the shots, and I think we saw that immediately last year. I think the shift was last year. You saw the influence.
Well, when you're drafting, after Jason Light had drafted 2 corners in Carlton Davis and MJ Stewart, and then in the 2nd round this year they draft a corner, and then they draft another corner later on. I think that's a pretty big sign that, like, Todd Bowles must have gone to Jason Light and his staff was like, look, like, these guys ain't it. Like, dude, they wanted their own guys.
They watched the film on MJ Stewart and like, oh, sure, this ain't it. You said. I think we still need some help there.
And I mean, they were 100% right. I think. I like the Carlton Davis pick, but the MJ Stewart pick was a pretty big reach. But I mean, back to Winston. I mean, another key thing that they did in that offseason was not only promote Dirk Cutter, but they also re-signed Doug Martin to a big-time contract, and it was perceived that Doug Martin really helped out Winston. And then Doug just wasn't the same, and a lot of that is because the offensive line just wasn't that great also. But back to your point, you can't ignore the trenches, right? And I'm sure a lot of people were upset about picking Vita Vea over Derwin James, and I like Derwin James, but I wasn't upset at the Vea pick because I was like, this is finally what they should do. And I think we're going to talk about the draft later on in the episode, but I mean, yeah, just like you said, they tried to give Winston all the weapons he needed, and the offensive line and the coaches. It just didn't work. That's just the bottom line.
They went defense last year, fellas, the first 5 picks, and then throw out the kicker. I mean, that's just a pick, a 5th round. And the only offensive position drafted last year was wide receiver. Now is Scotty Miller in the 6th round. So I'm pretty sure Bowles staff, BA's staff, all together collectively looked at the defense like, we got to start drafting defense, guys. I mean, it's
well. I have a feeling that this year's going to be a lot of offense, though. It's just the way it shapes out.
Yeah, I mean, and there's obviously injuries that happened with Evans, Justin Evans, and Beckwith. That those were potentially players that were going to contribute on the defensive side of the ball. Unfortunately, these injuries really hampered that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, Bucksy, let me get back on track here. Sorry about that. I got really lost. So the Buccaneers made some more free agency transactions. They have been busy, as we know that is the season. So let's get into some of the moves they made and your opinions on them. This one's going to be exciting. Now let's start things off. The Buccaneers brought back safety Andrew Adams on a 1-year deal. He will return. And I believe this is his first full offseason with the team, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, good for him. So, I mean, they've got him back on a 1-year deal. Hopefully he can contribute to that secondary next season. Some other moves that happened. Brashad Perryman signed a deal with the Jets. He is getting paid $8 million a year, which, quite frankly, the Bucs just weren't going to pay him that. They weren't. And a
lot of people were upset at me. Like, they're, DMing me and stuff saying, well, oh, my God, can't believe they didn't keep Perryman. I was like, look, when you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, those are 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You just can't afford to pay your number 3 wide receiver $8 million. Just like the same thing with Adam Humphries last year. I love Adam Humphries, but the Titans they paid him more money than the Bucs could, unfortunately.
I'm genuinely surprised that Perryman got the market that he did. I thought he was going to be paid somewhere around 5 or 6. I didn't think he was going to go over 7.
when he wasn't being signed, after a week, I thought he was coming back.
Yeah.
I wonder if those folks watched the first half of last year because everyone was calling for him to be cut
exactly
and let go and got to get that compensatory pick for this guy. He's awful. His catch rate was freaking awful. It was so bad.
His first touchdown of the year, he didn't even mean to catch.
Oh, I know. It bounced off the defender's hand.
Right?
Is that Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, and yes, Winston did help him make millions. I will agree with people. But also Mike Evans and Chris Godwin being hurt. Thank you very much to them. Perryman owes them, man. Their Christmas gifts better be freaking really nice to Jameis, to Mike, and to Chris.
And I mean, a lot of people look at Brashad Perryman's 6 touchdowns. Well, he had 3 of them in one game against the Lions. Which I mean, the Lions just showed very little fight in that game. And another thing, not only did Chris Godwin and Mike Evans go down, but Scotty Miller also went down. So there's even another receiving threat that was gone. So, I mean, you're looking at either throwing to Brashad Perryman or Justin Watson or Ishmael Hyman. There just wasn't a ton of options.
Look, and no offense to the gentleman, but I just want to say he's on his 4th team in 5th year in the NFL. All right, so 1 year in Cleveland, 1 year in Tampa, 2 years in Baltimore. The guy's bounced around. I always tell you, go get paid, man. If the Jets are going to give you $8 million, they're going to guarantee go get that money. It's not guaranteed. NFL's not for long.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really weird when people get upset about players getting their money. If a player gets paid a certain amount and somebody's like, oh, he got paid way too much. At the end of the day, it's kind of weird to watch from a distance, but you know how people are.
Whatever, man.
There is no such thing. I hate this word. There's no such thing as overpaid. the team may overvalue you and give you a certain salary that maybe you would not have gotten from another team. However, if they're going to pay you that, you're not overpaid. Someone's paying you. Now, you may disagree and say, man, in let's say Perryman for a situation, $8 million if you're a Jets fan. Man, he could have taken that $8 million and potentially used it on another need. Not really sold on Perryman, but let the guys make their money.
Right.
If teams are going to pay you, you're not overpaid. Now you have to see, is your production going to live up what you are paid? Left tackles are paid a lot of money, folks. If you don't like Donovan Smith's play, I'm sorry. He's not a guard, right? He's going to get paid. He's a left tackle. He's gonna make money. It's a position of need.
What did we say earlier in the show? The cap is a myth, okay? It doesn't matter what these guys are getting paid. They're going to make it work.
Yep. And also, me and Chris have been talking on Twitter and stuff. We've been really banging the drum for Demarcus Robinson from Kansas City on the similar deal that Perryman got. I really think he would accept that. Well, what are your thoughts on Robinson, Chris?
Give me a guy who's got good hands, good route runner, but also can fill in. Here's the situation that I think the Bucs are as of today, and we don't know future acquisitions that are going to be made via the draft or free agency at the receiver position. And yes, there's going to be a major drop off no matter what when you look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? They're elite.
Yep. But
playing the position that they play behind them right now, giant question mark, right? So I'm not talking about slot receiver, but if Evans goes down, can someone slide like Perryman did last year? Let's say slid in that role. Robinson could be someone who could do that. However, he could also be on the field at the same time as those two guys. But he's a guy who, and I watched him at Florida, and I'm not being a homer here just to say that sign him because he went to Florida. He has good hands and he's a good route runner. If they want him to play special teams, I'm sure he can do that too. So I'm for it, man. I think, like you said, Evan, I think he'll accept a value deal and maybe a prove it deal, and he could do something like Perryman and have a good season and go make some money.
Now, we had mentioned earlier, you kind of used the phrase overvalued. I wanted to get this question in there really quick. We got news that Jadeveon Clowney turned down a $17 million a year contract from the Dolphins. Do you think he's going to get what he's out for? You think a team will pay him?
At this point.
They could. Well, if you look at, and this is a situation now, because, fellas, we don't know when actual play is going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's always potential that someone goes down with injury, and then you're kind of desperate and open it up to a player and pay them maybe more of what it would have cost you. So I think there's injury concerns with Clowney. That's, I think, the big issue. He's obviously a talented player, but I don't know. There was players in the past that I'm like, are they really going to pay this guy that much? But if a team does it, they do it. So I didn't even see that news that he turned down a contract, but. Interesting. He'll play on a team this year.
Yeah, apparently the Dolphins offered him 17. He rejected it, and then the Dolphins went to Shaq Lawson and signed Shaq Lawson, who was actually one of my free agent targets. But I wouldn't have probably given him $10 million. So good for Lawson.
Lawson was my number one target for the Bucs in that draft, and they ended up taking Hargraves. That was my guy. I was pumping Lawson up big time. Loved his film. Did
they pass on Lawson, or did they not get a chance to draft him? I forget.
I think Buffalo took him after, didn't they? I have to look at the draft.
I feel like it was like 16 or something they took him.
I think they did pass.
I think they passed. Because they also passed on Sheldon Rankins, who I really liked.
Yeah, good point.
Taking a look at some other transactions that went down today, the Buccaneers lost Peyton Barber. The news came out a few days ago that he was signing with another team, and then for some reason it took a few days to actually confirm that it was the Washington Redskins, but they picked up Peyton Barber. He earned himself, I want to say, what was his contract, 1.6 or a little more?
2 years, $3 million total, so about 1.5 per year. I believe $600K guaranteed. So, pretty solid deal for Barber. I think, I just don't think, it's funny because before the season last year, Bruce Arians, I have to look at the film. We got a running back. Well, that certainly changed because. I don't know, maybe it was the emergence of Ronald Jones, but some of them must have changed because, if BA liked him that much, that's not a whole lot of money, and you could have fit that under the cap to have some depth there. But I always liked Barber, thought he was a solid player, but I also thought that he had hit his ceiling. So good luck to him in Washington.
Agreed. Yeah, I think we're going to see a completely different backfield
Do you think
season.
Dare makes the team?
No, I don't. I mean, if you're going out and you're telling people that you're looking for a running back who can catch the ball, that was the role that Dare played last year, correct? I mean, so potentially for special teams, I don't think this is a guy that we're going to see on Sundays as the third down back in 2020 into the 2021. Hopefully they're playing in 2021.
With me and Jonathan Taylor is everybody's saying, oh, he can do it all. Well, he hasn't really caught the ball much at all in college until this past season. So if you're talking about a pass-catching running back, I think a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or DeAndre Swift is a much better fit if you're talking about a pass-catching running back. But, we'll talk about the draft here in a few minutes.
Yeah. Sure. I think it's Jones and then new player, Dare potential, to make.
Do you think that's 2 draft picks or a free agent and a draft pick?
I think they're going to sign a free agent here in the upcoming week at running back.
Okay.
I like your Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson.
I think so too, man. Now, we've got some more transaction news. This is the most up-to-date one, and I saved it for last because this is going to be very opinionated. Ndamukong Suh was brought back to Tampa at the beginning of the offseason. Bruce Arians came out and said that his top priority over anything else on the team is maintaining that front seven. With the signing of Suh coming back on an $8 million year, you can go ahead and check that off the list for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan, I'll give it to you first. How do you feel about Suh coming back?
Well, I'm gonna try to do this short because I know that Chris has got some thoughts on Ndamukong Suh.
This is what I'm excited
trust
for.
Me, trust me. I mean, he's got the data to back it up. So, he's overpaid. I'm sorry, overvalued by the Buccaneers.
I was gonna call you out, bro.
So I don't look at him right now at this stage in his career and see an $8 million a year player. I know it's only 1 year, but I would have felt much more comfortable if it was 7, 6.5, 6. I just don't feel comfortable giving that guy $8 million.
To be fair, he did take $2 million less than what we paid him last year.
Well, 9.25 was the deal last year.
Okay, so a little over $1 million. My bad.
I mean, I know a lot of people were telling me, well, Gerald McCoy signed for less and for more years. Well, listen, I would have liked Gerald McCoy back, but this team ain't signed Gerald McCoy back. So, Suh, he was decent against the run last year, but decent is all he really was. I mean, does that really get $8 million nowadays? I guess so. Just like Chris had pointed out on Twitter earlier, Will Golston had a great year and nobody seems to talk about it. He's making 4.75 and Suh's making 8. I would have rather kept that $8 million and used it somewhere else. Maybe some depth or a wide receiver or something, but it is what it is. And like I said, in my battle plan, I let Suh walk, and then I ended up signing 2 interior defensive linemen to sort of fill that void. But the Buccaneers felt like they needed him back, and now they got him back. So.
Yeah, man, he's overpaid. No, I'm just kidding. No, if I was Evan, I would have gone in a different direction too. And it's nothing personal against Suh. I'm honestly just not a big fan, and it has no. And again, it's nothing personal with the guy. Everything. A lot of people seem to make things so personal with a former defensive tackle, and it didn't need to be that way.
I like you as a person. Your football just sucks.
Yeah, I just go watch the Tennessee game from last year and go watch the home game where we played the Saints. I say we, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Game Pass is free. Go watch the film and tell me what you think about his effort in those 2 games. I'm just saying. However, we know after the staff evaluated last season, 1, top priority was Shaq Barrett. 2, was JPP. And I'm talking about the defensive line. I'm not talking about quarterback.
Yep, and they got those done very quickly.
And 3 was Suh, right? It's the pecking order, and that's perfectly fine. If you look at how they ranked the value, again, or the need of those players, it went 1, 2, 3, and Nassib was kind of the odd man out. Nassib was going to go get paid because that guy's all effort, right? That's a guy you want to have on your football team.
That's an $8 million a year pass rusher.
Dude, they drafted Anthony Nelson to fill that role, and I feel pretty good about him. Did I say it's Anthony, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the team made it pretty clear, in my opinion, of what they wanted to do. I think it allowed him to test free agency. Weird situation where he gets rid of his agent, and then the next day the Bucs sign him, and now there's reports at San Francisco and Baltimore were also, I think that was who Ian Rappaport reported that. Look, I'm fine with bringing him back. I do think that they overvalue him a little bit because I would have liked to see that money allocated for a veteran safety. I understand Andrew Adams is there. I don't 100% feel that Andrew Adams is going to make the final roster, guys. I think he's a depth. But could you go out and get a guy like a Tony Jefferson, who I think previously played for BA?
He did.
I think we need still some help, like we talked about, guys, at wide receiver and potentially another running back. I still think they need to pick up. They could have picked up another defensive tackle, I feel, for cheaper. And I still, am questioning cornerback and offensive line.
Well, the way I look at it is like a guy like Shelby Harris. Like he couldn't have been like better than Sue. I mean, he's younger. I just feel like he would have been a better option than Ndamukong Suh.
I've been beating the drum for years about you have to get younger at defensive tackle, and I have to commend the overall effort of the defensive line last year. And yes, each individual on that defensive line played a role. I'm not going to undervalue the role that Sue fits on this football team. However, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass and tell you he's a good defensive tackle. He's average. He is an average defensive tackle. He is not the player he was 6 years ago. Gerald McCoy is not the player he was 6 years ago. However, we have hypocrites in this fan base who go after a certain player and put up his stat line, and then we'll go and look at Sue's stat line and it's garbage, but then say, well, we have the number one run defense.
Well, he commands a double team. He gets a lot of the attention.
Yeah, the data is inaccurate. If you look at totals versus if you look at percentage, Vea is double teamed more. Vea is a solid defensive tackle. Vea doesn't get the love. Golston doesn't get the love. Nacho didn't get the love. Bo Allen played a really good year last year, fellas. There's no drop off. So kudos. Where folks need to pay attention is this defensive coaching staff and the job that Todd Bowles did and the rest of the staff did in improving that defensive line. And noting the fact that you have Shaq Barrett. When JPP came back, because when JPP came back, Sue got better. I will give
everybody got better. I think
everyone got better. I'll give credit because then you can't focus on one guy. I mean, you got Vea, you've got Sue, you've got Barrett, you've got JPP, and NASA played great too, guys.
And I think I think exactly what you just said is the reason a lot of people are expecting JPP to be the guy who leads the team in sacks next year. Because at that point, who are you going to block?
It could be. I'm telling you guys, Anthony Nelson, if he stays, that guy showed flashes. And I think he's going to fill that NASA role. So you look at it, I'm not upset by the move. I do think that they're overvaluing it. I just feel like it's very hypocritical for a fan base to completely obliterate a guy on social media. And Bucks Media did it too. If anyone should have had a book written about them, it should have been the previous 93. Okay, because there's outlets who trash that guy. There's people who were producing Bucks content who ripped this guy for smiling and were reporting how long he stayed at a charity event. And then Pewter Report comes out and says that Sue is better than Gerald McCoy ever was for the Bucks after the fourth game.
Yeah,
and I'm okay to say that because I addressed that with those guys directly. The rest, I don't even want to mention their names. There's unfortunately one guy's account was deleted, but that's a whole nother story. But we don't even need to go there. However, the way that you treat one person who, again, was average as he's going out the door, guys. He's not and we're talking about Gerald McCoy. All right, let's not beat around the bush. Yeah. I didn't want to make this a Gerald McCoy versus Sue thing. It's ridiculous. They're two different players. They serve different roles. But if you look at a stat line and say, this guy's no good, he's not worth this. And then why don't you look at the stat line and say, this guy's not worth this? Well, because you say, well, it's the number one run defense. Do you guys remember when the Bucks had the number one defense prior to this year?
2012?
Yeah, who was on that team?
Gerald McCoy.
Okay, I'm just putting it out there. I just wish people wouldn't be hypocrites and just look at things logically. I'm not upset about the signing. I just wish people would not overvalue what an individual player is. This is a unit. This defensive line performed very well. However, teams threw the ball a lot on that team last year. So
especially early.
Your data's gonna be skewed when you look at totals. I ask people to look at percentages and we talked about this before we started the show, guys. What is a double team? If a center comes and helps and chips, is that a double team, or are you actually engaging with two offensive linemen? So the next gen stats, it's out there for everyone. You can look at it. They show Sue below the median when it comes to percentage of double teams across defensive tackles in the league, and his success rate is below the median, and Vea is above. So I think, as a unit, I hope they continue to perform well. I've said my piece on the situation. I don't have anything against him. I just don't feel that he is the player that people think that he is. I understand what the staff says about him. Look, if he's a good locker room guy, if he's a good leader, if he doesn't get stupid penalties, although I ask you to go back and look at the offsides and compare it to the previous player, and then why don't you get up in arms about that? I just want the team to win, man. I don't care who's wearing 93. I don't give a crap. Just win. Just continue to perform well, and hopefully that happens.
Yeah, well, you do mention, just the dollar amount that he got, and you said that, possibly used on a guy like Tony Jefferson. It would just a quick little note that I wanted to say on Tony Jefferson. The thing that would make a deal with Tony Jefferson difficult right now is the fact that you can't get a physical done, and I'm sure, any team that wants to sign Jefferson, he's coming off of that torn ACL. Any team that wants to sign Jefferson to any amount of money is going to want a physical. And right now, that's why I'm surprised that Todd Gurley was able to land a deal with the Falcons that quick. But I think they pretty much already had a physical. But one thing I'm looking at, actually, so Ndamukong Suh's sack totals, and I just don't look at sack totals, but his sack totals are declining every year. And so it's just something funny that I thought about. He had 2.5 sacks this past year for Tampa Bay. Do you remember two of them? Because I do. Both of them were the quarterback just ran right into him. Kyler Murray was running, and Sue just kind of clotheslined him. And then the same thing with David Blau in the Detroit game. So he kind of lucked into 2 sacks there. And I just don't understand the media, really. This is the first time I've seen the media say even, well, the stats don't show it, but he makes an impact. That's really the first time. This is the first time with a player that I've seen a lot of national media say that, and I know that you've been trying to say he's average, and I do agree that he's average. 6 years ago he wasn't average.
Correct.
6 years ago Gerald McCoy wasn't average.
No.
Right now I still think right now Gerald McCoy is the better football player. But
he does flashier things, and that's what I want people to understand. They're two completely different players. Just because they are their position says defensive tackle, they're in two defensive different defensive schemes, and I don't know now what they run over there in Dallas. But Carolina was a 4-3, right? Cover 2, potentially I think was their
Dallas
base.
Is pretty similar, yeah.
So if you look at a 3-4, Sue's lining up a lot on the outside, with Vea as your true nose. So they're different players. One is known more as a run stuffer. One is to you command some space, bigger body, wide. One is known as a guy who's got a quick first step. It's going to put penetration up the middle and help out your outside guys, your edge rush guys. The thing that what the old previous 93 had to deal with was they didn't have guys on the outside.
Yeah, so Michael Bennett, and that was before Michael Bennett was real good. Michael Bennett,
and then JPP for 1 year.
Gerald McCoy played on some of the worst defenses this team has probably ever seen,
and that's his fault, right? Let's be honest.
All his fault.
Let's be honest. It's his fault.
He's the captain, right? He shouldn't be the captain.
It's not Levante's fault. It's not anyone else who played on that defense. It's not the constant staff changes. It's not the constant drafts that didn't work out and the horrible signings by GMs. It's all on him, and that's all I want. Look, guys, Gerald McCoy's not my favorite player that ever played for Tampa. I feel like he got a raw deal on the way out, and I think there's a lot of people who attack him for the wrong reasons, and I think it's disgusting. And I think they should look themselves in the mirror. And people complain about the way that we treated our former quarterback. Again, send me the links of where media. Send me the links to BBP Chris, local media. Send me exactly how they trashed your quarterback that you loved. And I will send you links on how people who produce content for Tampa Bay, how they trashed the other guy on his way out. That's my challenge. Send it to me. I challenge you.
I will say this about Gerald McCoy, and then we can go ahead and move on to the draft before we wrap things up.
Sorry, guys. I got passionate about that.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. We love the passion more than anything else on this damn show. I'll say this about Gerald McCoy. We can move on. I put out a tweet recently, and I'm just going to reiterate that. I remember being very, very just salty about Gerald McCoy on the way out. I wasn't a fan
I do remember that, Rhett.
Yeah, I was not a fan of how the situation was handled from the Bucs' perspective, but at the same time, my main problem with Gerald McCoy was the fact that he engaged with fans so much on social media. That pissed me off over the years because, I mean, we've seen countless players just get into Twitter arguments, but I don't think I saw it with anyone else more than I saw it with Gerald McCoy. Does that make him a bad football player? Absolutely not. But ever since he's left, the way that I've seen he stays connected with his teammates that he had in Tampa Bay. I mean, his son played basketball at Tampa Catholic, and you saw it on Twitter everywhere it was posted. Pretty much huge pieces of the Bucs team. Jameis Winston, Levante David. I believe there were some other players there. I don't remember who, but they all showed up to his son's basketball game. I saw him at the Florida State Fair the night that I went with his family. I mean, the guy loves Tampa. He's had nothing but good things to say.
Did you go to the Florida State Fair with his family, or
did I?
No, it was just the way you said that. I was just busting you.
I get you. No, I saw him. I looked at him, and I had to make sure that
everyone. Rhett's all right. He walked up and he go, "Hey man, are you Gerald McCoy? I like your truck."
Right. Just my luck, right? But
y'all, here's sources. #sources. Breaking news, right?
Yeah.
Which means Gerald McCoy was going to come back in a Bucs uniform. He was in a Wawa. He was in a Wawa a couple weeks ago. I have the picture wearing a Bucs warm up.
Oh man,
in a Wawa.
Oh, man.
Come on, in Tampa. You know what that means? He's coming back.
Absolutely.
Coming back.
You know what's crazy is that this time last year and maybe the year before, there was a report that came out that said Gerald McCoy was staying in Tampa. I don't know if you remember the report that I'm talking about, but that was literally
Stroud.
Was it Stroud?
Yeah, Stroud said it was last year. Stroud said he was staying.
Because I remember the report came out that said McCoy is going to stay, but the one that I'm talking about in particular said that like one of our reporters was outside of a jeweler in Tampa, and because he got this on his jewelry, it means he's staying in Tampa, and that was the narrative that they rode with. Not a lot of people.
I didn't really remember that one.
Yeah, not a lot of people remember it because it wasn't up for very long. And
one more thing.
Go ahead, Evan.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, you mentioned the interaction with fans, and you mentioned the Twitter thing. I understand if people didn't like him for his personality, and I understand that the reason that they didn't like him was personal. I'm cool with that. Just admit it. Mm-hmm. And admit that you are skewing what you are saying and what you were telling Bucs fans. If you are covering the team for whatever outlet, whether you make money on that or you don't, but if you're an official, you're writing articles and you're putting content out there, he blocked you on Twitter, dude. I understand you don't like him, but just admit that. Don't hide behind the fact that we don't have anything personal against him. Of course you do. I hated Kellen Winslow Jr. Hated him.
Well, apparently you had a right to hate him. I mean,
well, but I'm telling you, I hated the signing. I didn't want anything to do with that guy. I didn't like LeGarrette Blount. I didn't like Geno Hayes. Guys, there's a whole list of guys that played on the team, and I will tell you personally, I didn't like them. I don't have anything personal against Sue, so I'm gonna make it about the tape. So if you had a problem with the former 93, I guarantee you, the most people who are the most vocal about it, it was personal.
Yeah, I do want to bring up one more tweet from Chris. Actually, I believe it was yesterday. So just to wrap up this topic, really, you said, and you replied with a GIF. You said there's a news flash. They did this last year with another player before they did it to JW. Difference is they replaced one of them with the best QB in NFL history, and the other got replaced with an average option. Where was all the outrage? Yeah, exactly. To me, that's perfect. That's perfectly said. I feel like a lot of people were really like so happy when Gerald McCoy was gone and Sue was signed. Yet it's they weren't hanging on to Gerald McCoy. Like now they're just hanging on to Winston, and I get 20 questions a day from people asking me if Winston's going to come back to be the backup and how they hope he's going to be the backup. Like I I feel like Jameis Winston fans have a tough time moving on from things, whereas with Gerald McCoy, they were so ready to move on.
Bro, he went to Oklahoma. I mean, so again, you're not going to have that vocal fan base because, Oklahoma Twitter is not going to be vocal as much as Florida State University Twitter is vocal. And I just want people to compare the statements of what this organization was saying. J-Dubs was, and he's my boy, so I call him J-Dubs. I'm going to write a book about him. He says
over or under on 400 pages.
Door number two. Constantly saying we like what we have, but we're going to go see if we can get something better. Those were the words, and the words previously, and I paraphrase, were, well, he does some good things, but we don't think that he's playing at the level of he was a couple years ago. Right? That was McCoy.
Of course, he's not.
Okay, so there you go. So pretty similar. Right, to how the head coach and the GM, I think, even came out and said specific things. We're going to look to get better. Option for Jameis. And the other was, well, we don't think he's playing up to his level. So it's very, very consistent with what this organization does and what BA has done. And I understand that people are upset about it because you're fans of that player. But do the comparison, and maybe the other guy got a raw deal too.
Yeah.
Even though, again, he's average. He's average. They're both average. Just move along, folks. Stop with the God.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember Jason Light's final press conference after they fired Cutter in last offseason, and somebody asked him about Jameis Winston, and he said, "Oh, Winston's his fifth-year option. He will be back." And then they asked him about Gerald McCoy, and he said, "Well, we have some tough decisions to make." That's pretty telling. How you say he's back, and then they ask about Gerald McCoy. Well, we're going to have to talk about that.
They weren't going to pay him, guys. They weren't going to pay him. I get it.
Exactly.
It's a business decision.
That was the big thing.
No problem. It's a business
Although
decision.
I feel like they had what was McCoy making $13 million, I believe he was due.
Yeah, 13.
They signed Sue for about $9 million. Like you couldn't have restructured some type of deal to keep McCoy.
I don't think he wanted to.
It was that you didn't. I don't know if they just didn't want McCoy at that point.
I don't think he wanted to take. And again, this is no sources. I'm guessing. I don't think he wanted to take less money, man. I think he felt at that point in what he's paid and the dues that he's given to that organization. I think you guys gave me the contract, but I'll go play somewhere else. So let's just part ways. It made sense, guys. A better move. Moving on from Jameis in the end may for Jameis be a better move. I want that kid to go be successful somewhere. I wanted McCoy to go be successful.
If the Bucs win with Tom Brady, it may be a better move for them.
Dude, why not? Except for the fact when we played Carolina, I wanted to beat Carolina, but every other game, I hope he plays well. These guys that have contributed to our franchise, when we're not playing them, I root for them. I really want Jameis to be successful, and then everyone can come back and say, "See, we told you so." I'm like, that's Tampa, guys. That's what we do.
That's almost the case with look at Noah Spence in New Orleans now. I don't know how prominent he's going to be on the defensive line, but I really hope he does well, man.
Noah Spence is my guy.
We tooted his horn right here on the show all the time.
I'm convinced he's still a solid football player. I'm convinced there's something there. I don't know why I'm convinced, but I'm convinced.
I'm not there anymore. Not anymore.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But let's move on to our final topic. This has been a great conversation. We're going to keep it going into the NFL draft. Now, we talked about some of the transactions earlier. The Buccaneers losing Brashad Perryman, Peyton Barber signing with the Redskins. It might shake some things up for what the Bucs are going to be doing in the earlier rounds of the draft, what positions they're going to go. There's a lot more possibilities that have opened up. Chris, I wanted to toss this one to you, man. Do you have a dream draft scenario? What would you want them to do rounds 1 through whatever?
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm not going to get into the specifics about certain players outside of maybe one or a couple. When I was in the game producing content, guys, like, God, my off season was spent watching so much film on these college kids and breaking down, like when we talked about Shaq Lawson earlier, like, man, breaking down his tape, and I was like, you got to watch this Noah Spence guy because he's my number 2 defensive end. But I look at overall when it comes to a draft, especially for a team that was 7-9 last year, there are pieces in place. However, I think we need there's some deficiencies as well. I look at I like drafting the fat guys, and I draft the fat guys early. Quentin Nelson was my dude. I was very happy, with the Vea pick. But I will say that Javon Kinlaw, I am in love with that man. I think he would be an absolute beast for this franchise for many, many years. And that's a situation, if they choose to do so, guys, You can then, your veteran defensive tackle in Sue, you can limit his snaps, not have to play him 900-plus snaps that he played last year. Most, I believe, on the defensive line, right? That's me giving him credit, so thank you. I'm not a hater. But you can then rotate more. You can have, I think Kinlaw and Vea together would wreck shop. I don't think he'll get to 14 because I think the guy's going to be the first defensive tackle off the board. But we've seen crazy.
Do you think he goes before Derek Brown?
I kind of do. I think Brown's going to slip. I'm not the draft analyst this year.
Would you like Brown in Tampa?
I like Kinlaw better.
Yeah.
I like Kinlaw.
I kind of do too. At first, I was like all Brown, but like the more I've watched of Kinlaw, I'm like, man, this dude, the explosiveness that he has,
and he's got a story, and God, it would be such a good fit for Tampa. I kind of attribute him to kind of a Devin White style of player, just the type of story that he has. I think it'd be a really good fit. I look at any of the top offensive tackles. Obviously, the right side still is something that I do believe that they will address. My concern, oh God, and they're going to probably do it to me. If they go running back at 14, guys, I think it's going to be like the Aguayo situation for me again, where I'm just like, I just go out and get drunk with my friends and say, what the hell did we just do? Can Aguayo? I was like, I think my tweet when that happened, because I was out with my friends celebrating. It was someone's birthday. And I was like, I sure hope Aguayo can rush the passer, because that's what they needed in the second round. My God. But I think they like the running back from LSU. We were talking about that before we hit record. I do think that would be an option in the second round.
Then that'd be a much better option than at 14. Please. Jonathan, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 45 is so much better than Jonathan Taylor at 14.
I'm just telling you all, if you have to go and look at what this league is right now. This league is not built upon the back of a feature back. It's just not. I'm sorry. And if you sell me Todd Gurley, well, why the hell did the Rams just get rid of him? They use the crap out of you for 4 years and they send you off, and you move on. So when I look at value and what's needed, look what they're doing to Barkley. And they had to go out and get a quarterback, right? And Daniel Jones. That's exactly what the Rams had to do. They drafted Gurley. It didn't equate to more wins, guys, because then they had the number 1 pick the next year and went for Jared Goff. There are teams that, later on in the draft that maybe go running back by committee, like your New England and like, well, who knows what they're doing now, and like Seattle. But those guys that they're drafting late potentially aren't putting up the numbers of what you expect for, you're putting that collateral on a first-round pick. Oh, God, I would hate that so much. What I don't understand about the fan base right now when it comes to running back is why were all the people last year saying feed Rojo, feed Rojo, feed Rojo, now saying we better draft a running back, in the first round or in the second round? That doesn't make sense to me. I think when Rojo gets it upstairs, I think he's going to be a very, very solid back in the NFL. I think that's all you need. I do not like the workhorse NFL running back. I think we are in a different time. This is a pass-heavy league. Look at Kansas City. I mean, outside of Derrick Henry, guys, where are your workhorse running backs in this league? And how much are you willing to pay for that guy to work out, that you're giving the 14th overall pick for a running back that potentially you could get 3 rounds later, or just utilize the services of Ronald Jones and hope that it goes on upstairs for him? I think that's all he needs, guys. I think it's a mental thing for him. I think that guy's got all the skills. I will go back and watch that last game against Atlanta. I think maybe it was his best game. I think in the Rams game too, he also had a really good game.
Rams game, he was robbed of a 100+ yard stat line because of penalties bringing him back. That was probably, I think, his best game. I like the kid a lot. I like drafting fat guys. Safety. I don't know what you guys think are needs, man. Safety, wide receiver.
I feel like a veteran. I feel like a veteran safety is needed. I'm tired of people suggesting to me Grant Delpit in the first round.
No. Don't do it. Oh,
exactly.
I think the last thing you could do to help that secondary is toss another rookie back there. I like a veteran.
Don't do that.
I like a veteran safety, some sort of veteran presence in the secondary. But on my board right now, number 1 priority is the offensive line.
As it should be.
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where I'm at. That's what I want them to do at 14. I want them to take one of the tackles if they're there. I wouldn't mind Kinlaw whatsoever, but I am in agreement with you, Chris. they got to get a fat guy at pick number 14. It's either
Okay,
going to be
Rhett.
offensive or defensive line.
Rhett, here's the question. This is what was posed to me, and this is what Scott Reynolds and I got into a fight about. All right, here we go. Kinlaw's there, and one of the 4 top offensive tackles are there. What do you do?
It doesn't matter which of the offensive tackle it is.
I mean, your crush is gone. Who's your crush?
I like Andrew Thomas.
Okay, he's not there.
Yep.
Kinlaw's there, but you got another one of the top 4 rated tackles. Where do you go?
I guess I'm going Kinlaw at that point.
I probably go. Oh man, because my favorite offensive lineman's probably Tristan Wirfs. Man, that's tough. Because I mean, that would also mean that I'd be passing on a guy like Jedrick Wills, and that's man.
3 of the 4 are gone. Kinlaw's there. You got to pick between one of the 2. It's the Derwin James Vita Vea scenario, guys.
What's
the bigger need?
It really is. Well, I mean, but the bigger need to me is tackle.
Offensive.
Yeah, so I think the bigger need, I would have to probably go with the offensive tackle. I love Kinlaw, but I think the bigger need. I
sent Kinlaw to Atlanta, Evan. You just sent Kinlaw to Atlanta. No,
I know. With Dante Fowler, who's a talented player too, that would suck.
49ers going to take him anyway. He's not going to get to 14, so it's all.
I don't think Kinlaw even makes it to 13. I think probably Rhett. I'm going to agree with you now. I've changed course. I think 9 Jacksonville makes a lot of sense.
I think Jacksonville makes sense for him, dude.
Oh, poor guy. God, what a shitty franchise.
Yeah.
No, the scenario that was painted for me when Scott and I got into a big fight on Twitter about it, and it's not personal, folks. Was all defensive tackles are gone. That means Brown and Kinlaw, and all 4 offensive tackles are off the board. What do you do? And I said, well, dude, that means Jordan Love or someone like that's there. Said, and this was before Brady. I said, I guess I take a shot at 14 or I trade down. He said, no, man, Jonathan Taylor at 14 or go get a wide receiver. I said, dude, I'm not doing that at 14. No way.
I would take Kayvon Chase on at 14.
Well, I threw his name out there, and then I asked him about the Iowa defensive end and what he thought about him. So, because I still always look, big guys, but that's what sparked the whole thing. I'm like, please don't draft it. Please don't tell me that you're going Jonathan Taylor at 14. Nothing personal against Peter Rapport. I didn't read your mock, Scott Reynolds. How dare you, sir? I owe him a beer. I owe him a beer anyway. If Miles Sanders, I got a crush on that guy too. I drafted him last year, way late. Love that guy.
Yeah, he's Miles Sanders is an exciting player. So I had one more question for you before we wrap up the show, Chris. So out of the 4 offensive tackles, which one is your favorite, just based on what you've seen and what you've read so far?
Corn-fed Iowa. Give me Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska.
Translation: Tristan Wirfs.
There you go. I don't typically look at schools and say, oh, you don't want to draft a Clemson defensive lineman because look at what they did.
Don't scout by the helmet, right?
Exactly.
Damn sure don't want to draft a Georgia quarterback. I can tell you that much.
But they feed there's something about the mentality of those guys up there in corn-fed country. Give me an Iowa guy all day long.
Are eating good.
Yeah, and at 14, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to be there, but I
don't think he's going to be there. I think the most likely to be there, honestly, is probably Andrew Thomas out of all 4 of the tackles. Like I think Trent Williams, wherever he goes, like the Bucs' best bet would be Trent Williams gets traded to a team like the Browns or the Jets.
Good call.
Like that's their best bet because, I mean, there's a real scenario where all 4 offensive tackles are gone and Kinlaw's gone. And in that case, I mean, I'm trying like heck to trade down, but if I can't, I'd probably take Kayvon Chase on.
So who do you got? I'm sorry, Red, to cut you off. Who do you guys look to when you look at people who? And I'm not talking about mocks. I'm talking about where they rank these players. What are the sources that you guys use that you trust?
I like Draft Network. I like Trevor Sikkema.
Yeah,
he's my boy.
I was gonna say Draft Network as well. I mean, even with the later round guys, the guys that at the beginning of the offseason I haven't heard of to really get caught up to speed, Draft Network for me is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, Kyle Krabs is my dude. And he works for Draft Network. But that was a guy that I was interviewed on my show a long time ago when I was doing it. But I do agree with you, Evan, that I think of all that could potentially be there, I think Andrew Thomas might be the most likely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here, kinda. So let's say all four of the tackles are gone, and Kinlaw's gone, and Derek Brown's gone. What would you attempt to do?
See, that's the whole situation that I was presented with, and I said, well, what are the quarterbacks are there? Which are the quarterbacks are there? I kind of like Jordan Love, man. But again,
I like Jordan Love too. I do like Jordan Love. But I mean, I think he'll be there either way. I mean, would you still take Jordan Love at 14, even with Brady in the fold?
See, I answered that question previously, not knowing, assuming the fact that Winston was going to be back, because I didn't think Brady was going to happen, right? No matter what people were telling me.
I don't think many did.
So I really, at that point, I said, well, you go Love. I don't know what to do at that point. I really like the tape on the LSU edge. How you pronounce his last name? Chason?
I've been saying it Chason.
Caleb Chason. Somebody in the live stream told me that the other day, and so I've got it locked in the brain.
And I'm always at that point when your top guys are gone. Who wants that guy? Who wants that quarterback? If it's Jordan Love at 14, who wants to jump you to block that other team from taking that kid? But Bruce doesn't trade down. So, what do you think about the Penn State edge rusher? Gross
Matos. I like him. I think at 14 is kind of a reach, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't. It's such a tough question.
Like,
man.
I would sort of feel more comfortable just like at that point just going with Josh Jones, tackle from Houston.
I think Josh Jones. Okay. You think he'd be available in the second?
Nah, probably not.
No, you never know.
Late first.
I think he's like 20 to 25. That range.
I gotcha. It definitely is an interesting situation, and I mean, you brought up the idea of Love at 14. If the absolute worst case scenario happens, if that's what the Bucs do, that for me would probably be the biggest balls of steel move that this team has ever made in the history of the draft. I mean, drafting.
I would like it. I like Jordan Love.
I'd rather have a quarterback than a running back at 14. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got 2 years. I feel you got 2 years of Tom.
Yep. And Jordan Love's 21 years old. There's still plenty to work on, and he's got all the tools. I really like the idea of, I would love for Jordan Love to get into the second round, and even if Jordan Love got into the second round, I would trade up for that guy. But obviously that's not going to happen. But I'm gonna get so much shit for this, guys. So much shit on Twitter. People are like, you're telling people to draft a quarterback at 14. No.
Nobody listens to our show, man.
No. All these players are off the board. I said the Iowa guy. I said the LSU guy. I'm just throwing out the scenario of, are you picking 14 next year? I don't think so. I feel we're not going to be. I hope we're not drafting 14 next year.
I think playoffs are the expectation, so you're going to be drafting after 20.
Yeah, and I don't think quarterback at 14 is likely. I just threw it out there. It's a crazy scenario. I think they're going to go a little bit later. Maybe the Iowa quarterback or something. Fifth round, whatever that guy's going to fall to.
I like Anthony Gordon. I was reading up on him a little bit before the show.
Washington State.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I do like him. He needs a little bit of work. I feel like the situation that you'd be able to put him in, draft him in the 5th round or with that 4th round comp pick. I think if you're able to put him in that situation, he's only a 1-year starter. But I think if you're able to put him behind Tom Brady, I think he could work. And I'm a big fan of Mike Leach and what he's done there with his quarterback. So we'll see what happens.
You guys like Trevor Sikkema? What does he tell everyone? Mm-hmm. You draft a quarterback every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's smart no matter what round.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be first pick.
Because, I mean, if you hit on one and you already have a starter, you can just trade that for something you need. Like the Patriots, they drafted Garoppolo and Brissett and had Brady, and they just traded them for picks.
So we have got one more question, and we're going to keep it nice and short because we are about to wrap up. But Chris, we had talked about the expectations for people with Brady coming in, a lot of the moves being made for the Bucs. For a lot of people, it seems like Super Bowl or bust, right? The expectation is that the Buccaneers have to make the playoffs and have a deep playoff run is what a lot of people are expecting. Let me ask you, what is your expectation for the upcoming 2020 season, if it happens?
Yeah, I think your expectation of any team going into the season is Super Bowl. I mean, that's why you're playing the game. That's why you're coaching the game. When I looked at when they were making a move at quarterback, I said, could they make the playoffs with Jameis? And I said, they could. Will they make the playoffs with, at this time, Drew Brees, Tom Brady? I said, yeah, they will. Some of the moves that the other teams in the NFC South are making, I think, are helping them a little bit. Who knows with Carolina and who knows with Atlanta. I'm not sold on Atlanta right now, guys. Yeah. Even though they've picked up some players. I think Fowler was a bigger acquisition than Gurley, personally.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think this is the opportunity for
this is a two-team race.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for the team to challenge for the NFC South. I think, but I'm telling you guys, the Super Bowl goes through this year. I look at Kansas City out in the AFC. I don't think Tennessee is gonna duplicate what they did. However, they may. Houston's declining. Who knows what Indy's gonna do with Phillip Rivers? New England on the decline. Buffalo going up. Miami potentially going up. But guys, I think this is an NFC battle this year, and I think the battle's between New Orleans and Tampa. Crazy as that seems.
You think you're not saying for the NFC South. You're saying for the NFC Conference.
I'm saying, God, it's going to sound crazy to say that, guys, but I feel it, man. I just feel like the winner coming out of the NFC South, but then you might not have the home field. Look, I just look across the NFC.
It's big.
It's Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, fellas. Just freaking light it up right now. This is what it is.
Prime time, baby.
Can the defense continue to improve? Can Mike Evans and Chris Godwin stay healthy? Can the offensive line do its job? If they do, playoffs for Tampa Bay, and then we'll see what happens from there. My God, can you imagine a home game? Can you imagine a home playoff game in Raymond James Stadium?
Oh, my God, with all these sold-out bandwagon fans and their Brady jersey, I don't give a damn about the bandwagon. As long as Raymond James can feel like a home game again, I am so excited.
You know how many people, and of course, I wasn't even alive for this, but you know how many people have told me or whatever, yeah, man, I became a fan in 96. I became a fan in 95, became a fan in 97. I was like, well, that's when they were starting to get good. So, I mean, everybody has jumped on a bandwagon at some time.
That's how you become a fan.
It happens. Yeah, stop. Don't complain about it. If you're going to complain about it, then don't complain when the stadium's empty.
You became a fan for a reason, and unless you followed the team since 1976 because, you grew up in Tampa, most likely you were rooting for another team prior. I was a Washington fan. I admit that. I was the black sheep of the family who didn't root for the Eagles, and I went to a home game against.
My dad was actually a Dolphins fan, and then when the Bucs were a franchise, they drafted Ricky Bell. My dad loved Ricky Bell, so he started following the Bucs.
I mean, dude, the team was awful when I went to a Washington Tampa game, but I was like, this is really cool. It's only an hour away from me, and they seemed kind of into their shitty football team, and why not? I'm going to start going to these games.
Yeah.
And it's been tons of fun for you ever since, right?
I was a Bucs fan because of Craig Erickson, folks.
99% of the people who watch our show just went, who?
Yeah.
Bunch of bandwagon fans.
I recognize the name. I can't tell you, wasn't his number 19 or something?
Craig Erickson, I thought we were 11. Maybe
I don't know.
I said that, but really, Trent Dilfer was my favorite player back in the day. No one likes Trent. Trent's my boy. Leave Trent alone.
Definitely an interesting situation we have got in front of us with the way things are going to play out. We have to wait and see if the Buccaneers are still going to be busy in free agency, and then, of course, we have to wait and see what they do in the draft. The draft is still scheduled to happen a month from today. But it's going to happen in a studio location, and there were some reports that are coming out today. There's owners talking about wanting to delay it, wanting to push it back, wanting to make it one round per day. This is something we've never been in the middle of before, folks, and honestly, I hope it's something we're never in the middle of again. But right now, we just have to hurry up and wait and wash your goddamn hands. That's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, man. This has been one of our best episodes in a long time. We loved having you on.
This was a blast, and I'm going back into retirement. I tell people to be unique. I can't do any more shows because if you just have me on, like, it's not unique anymore. So I like what you guys do. I really do. You guys do a good job. Continue to be unique. Continue to do your homework. You guys do. You guys really do a good job. I appreciate the content that you put out there.
Hey, thank you so much, dude. That means the world. One more thing before we wrap up. Where can people find you aren't making Bucks content, but where can people find you yelling about the team?
At BBP Chris. That's BucsBrief Podcast Chris. BBP Chris. I guess what's my boy's name from Pewter Report? Ledyard. I guess he's now Bucks Briefing. So little.
I was actually I saw that. I saw that. I was like, Like I read an article, his article today about like other first round options and stuff. And I was like, Bucks Briefing. I was like, that's pretty close.
I called him out for him. Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm new. I don't understand. I said, I'm just kidding.
I don't care. A little situation.
Dude, I didn't put a space in between the two words because of how the NFL was potentially going after podcasts at that time for the use of the name.
Right.
So that's why it was always one word. And the whole concept initially was like, I'm going to do quick 15 to 20 minute short podcast, so it's going to be brief. It's a Bucks brief. It's like your daily, this is what's happening. It just morphed into something different, but that was the whole initial concept, and I never separated the words, even though people always space it, but it's all good.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and allowing us to pick your brain before you head back into podcast retirement. We hope you enjoy it, buddy, and don't stress yourself out watching this team. I know you don't, but Jesus Christ. I mean, you don't have to talk about it week after week, so good on you. But thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And I won't say we're looking forward to the next time because we don't know, but we'll keep it open. You have our number.
I like you guys. You never know.
Ladies and gentlemen, follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. You can follow myself on Instagram and Twitter at Redicus. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. And you can follow my co-host, the Philly Bucks fan himself, Evan Wanish, on Twitter at EvanNFL. Really sucks not having sports. I'm thinking about a tagline that I can send people over to your Twitter, and it like we have nothing to talk about other than the circles that we tweet every single day. It sucks.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow that. Leave us a voicemail, 813-433-0323. If you have a Bucks take and you want to send it in, anything at all, if it's 2 a.m. and you're thinking dirty thoughts about us, give us a call, 813-433-0323. You got 2 minutes or less to leave us a voicemail, and we'll bring it up on the next show. One more thing before we get out of here. Shout out to our sponsors at Pinecrest Printing and Signs. These guys have been helping out the Tampa Bay business community since 2001, and they're looking to do it for 20 more years. RJ and his experienced staff are on top of everything you need when it comes to branding your business. They have taken care of us so much as the official sponsor of the show. Anyone who has been out to us, connected with us, you have seen the flashy business cards. And I'm not even making it up, guys. These are some of the nicest business cards I have ever seen. It's like a matte, what's the word? It's like a matte finish. I forgot the name of the word. A matte suede finish almost. And then it's got the big flashy CFP logo. You know it when you see it. They did all of those for us. They did the great t-shirts that we have as well. All of the stickers that you see around Tampa Bay, all in part of our friends over at Pinecrest Printing and Signs. You can give them a call, 813-684-5444, or check out the website at pinecrestprinting.com. I am Rhett Matthew, signing off for Chris and Evan, and we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening, and go Bucks.